So now, in this video, we come back to a NAND logic gate integrated circuit. I am using the 74HC00 right there on the board, and we'll cover some other things. But in any case, it's a NAND gate. It doesn't have Schmitt trigger in it, and I think it's the 74HC04. I could be wrong. That has the Schmitt trigger. You know, might be more useful. But in any case, what that means is that the inputs, if you give them like a halfway voltage, they might give you a halfway output or something. Might have some problems right there. When you don't have Schmitt trigger, it's best to give it a direct voltage. You know, you don't have to if you don't want to, but that's just kind of the way they are. They don't have the Schmitt trigger hysteresis. So in any case, we're not going to dwell on that too much. We have NAND gate. Their main point of this video, make sure I get to that right away, is that you can combine NAND gates to make any other logic gate and pretty much any circuitry you want if you have enough of them. You know, of course, for complex circuits, buy integrated circuits that already have that circuitry in it. But like if you just need one NOT gate, especially if you need a NAND gate as well, you can just take one of the NAND gates. You can use the NAND gate that you need as a NAND gate. I don't have that demonstration here. But you can take a different NAND gate, so that'll be number one in this case. You can tie the two inputs together and you have a NOT gate. So that's the simplest other logic gate you can make out of a NAND gate right there. And so just for another example, I have another diagram that shows this. Let's say you don't want a NAND gate, you want an AND gate, but you don't want to buy integrated circuits that have AND gates. You can just take a NAND gate and then follow it up with a NOT gate right there. And then it becomes an AND gate. So just be aware of that. There's all kinds of ways to connect these. And they don't make for terribly great videos, I don't think. I think it gets kind of confusing. It's a little more fun to find the schematics and build them yourself. But in any case, we have the two inputs tied together. So now we only have two states because they're both low or they're both high. So basically it's like having one input because it's getting the same signal right there. And so with the NAND gate, you need both inputs high in order for the output to be low. So it's the opposite of an AND gate. AND gate, you need both inputs high in order for the output to be high. Instead, the NAND gate, both inputs high means the output is low. If one or both, you know, all the inputs are low, doesn't matter. At least one of them is low, no matter how many are high, then the output is going to be high. That's the main thing to realize with the NAND gate right there. So we tied them both together though, so now we only have two different options instead of four right there. They're both either low or they're both high. So if they're both low, output's high. If they're both high, output's low. That's a NOT gate right there. Pretty simple. So we're not going to dwell on this too much. So yeah, I'll zoom in a little bit just so we can see it a little bit better. There you can see we got to the negative supply, the input right there for the number one. And for the inputs we're not using, it's best to give them a solid voltage right there. Again, this doesn't have Schmitt trigger hysteresis or anything, so if we put it like a middle ground region, we could get an iffy output. And you know, it won't exactly be like that. It'll provide like a middle ground voltage. This is alternating back and forth, but it'll kind of look like that. Both LEDs will look lit up because you know, you kind of get current coming in both directions. So we got the inputs we're not using tied to the rails to prevent oscillations and stuff within the integrated circuit based on stray signals and whatnot. Kind of locks things in place and helps stabilize things. So we have the one that we're using, number one, up there. Two inputs on top, output there, come into where the two LEDs come together. So you can see we got the negative supply right there. The red LED, the 220 ohm resistor protecting it, because you need a fair amount of current, they're kind of dim, is to the negative supply right there. So the only way it can light up is if current's coming from the positive supply right there, which is a high output. It lights up if you have an integrated circuit that can power a load. These 7400 series integrated circuits can usually provide, you know, more than 20 milliamps of current, a little bit more at their outputs. I should point to that. But the total integrated circuit, you want to limit to 50 milliamps of current total. Just realize that. If you're using all four of that, keep your loads down to like 10 milliamps of current each. But in any case, we have the red LED lit up. it's coming from the positive supply. So if I move it, jumper, to the negative supply right there, then you can see blue LED lights up. We got the blue LED coming from the positive supply right there. So the way it lights up is if the output is connected to ground as best as it can right there. Remember, you don't get a direct connection. You lose a little voltage in the process, almost always. Just be aware of that. So, in any case, we got, as good of a connection as it's going to provide to ground. Plenty to light the blue LED in this case right there. So there you can see the path. Positive supply, red LED, lights up. Again, it needs more current because they're just naturally not as bright. So, just something to get used to. Blue LED, it lights up when the output connects to ground, right there. Higher value resistor, that's 1000. 1K means the same thing, to limit the current. So it drops more voltage than the red LED, and it has a higher value resistor. A lot less current is flowing, and this is a useful thing to do if you're starting out in electronics. Use the power supply to look at how much current you have to provide. So low output right there, blue LED, high output red LED. And another thing is this integrated circuit should not really be consuming power. It should just be the load, the output powering the load that consumes power. If I remove the red LED, ideally it should say 0 on there. And this isn't as accurate as a multimeter, but it's close enough for this example right there. And then if I set the output low, right there, blue LED, a couple milliamps of current, there you can see there's less current, a lot less current, and the blue LED may even still be brighter than the red LED right there. So, something to be aware of. Again, this isn't as accurate as a multimeter. It's probably thinking it's a spec below 2 milliamps of current, and a multimeter might actually say it's like 2.5 milliamps or something. It's not as accurate as a multimeter. Just be aware of that. But it's still very useful to look at that. Now, if I remove the voltage jumpers, I can't think of what I could term this, maybe biasing jumpers, to give a voltage to those inputs. I'll yank all of them. So it's probably more stable now than if I had this floating when we didn't have power applied. But yeah, there you can see. So it was, sometimes only showing 1, maybe 2 milliamps current. Now it shows 3 for the blue LED. And the red one, there we go. We got like 14. And as I said before, if I pluck this, we shouldn't see current. So there, that time, okay, it's starting to show a little bit. But in any case, we can see we got a lot more current flowing when this is going on, when we don't have the inputs tied there. So if I touch it, there you go. You can see my body is causing chaos, which it wasn't doing when we had those inputs tied together. So, this circuit's working exactly the same as far as I can tell. So, you may not be able to tell those inputs floating are causing something to happen unless you look at the power supply. When I remove the load, it should say 0. Sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't, as you can see there. So it should never be going up when we didn't have that load right there. It should have always been saying 0. So, in any case, nothing too exciting or, like too drastic. But again, when you get used to building a lot of circuits, you start noticing anomalies, like including with what the power supply is doing. And that helps you with your troubleshooting when you start realizing why floating inputs could be causing stabilization problems in the integrated circuit. Even if it's not causing a big problem, it's better to just tie them together. So that's it. Thanks for watching. Make sure you check out one of the other videos I'm posting on the screen and check out the links down below. They all help out a lot. I'll see you in the next video.